body fluids and the circulation. You have learned that all living cells have to be provided with nutrients, O2, and other essential substances. Also, the waste or harmful substance produced have to remove the continuously for healthy functioning of tissue. It is therefore essential to have efficient mechanism for the movement of the substance to the cells and from the cell. Different groups of animals have evolved in different methods for this transport. Simple simple organisms like sponges and the cylindrids circulate water from their surrounding through their body cavity to facilitate the cell to exchange the substance. More complex organisms use the special fluid within their bodies to transport such material. Blood it is the most commonly used body fluids by the most of the higher organisms, including the humans for the purposes. Another lymph fluid it is lymph. It is also help in the transport of the certain substances. In this chapter, you will learn in about the composition and the properties of the bloods and the lymph tissue fluids and the mechanism of the circulation of blood. It is also explained here. Blood it is the special connective tissue consisting of the fluid matrix, plasma, and the form element. Plasma Plasma it is straw-colored viscous fluid constitute nearly 55% of the bloods. 90 to 92% of the plasma is water and the protein contributes 6 to 8% of it. Protein mainly fibrinogen, globulin and the albumins are major proteins. Major proteins, fibrinogens are needed for clotting or coagulation of the blood. Globulin, it is primary, are involved in the defense mechanism of the body, and the albumins help in the osmotic balance. Plasma also contains the small amount of the mineral like sodium, calcium, magnesium, SCO3, chlorine, etc. Glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc. are also present in the plasma as they are always transits in the body factor. For coagulation or the clotting of bloods also the present in the plasma in an inactive form. Plasma without the clotting factor is called as a serum. Next point it is formed element. Erythrocyte, leukocyte and the platelets are the collectively these form elements and they are constitute nearly 45% of the blood. Erythrocyte or the red blood cell RBC are also most abundant of all the cells in the blood. A healthy adult man has on average 5 millions to 5.5 millions of RBC cube of bloods. RBC are formed in the red bone marrow in the adult. RBCs are devoid of nucleus, means absence of the nucleus, and are biconcave in the shape. They have the red color iron containing complex protein called as a hemoglobin, hence the color and name of this cell. A healthy individual has 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 ml of blood. This molecule play a significant role in transport of the respiratory gases. RBC have an average the lifespan are 120 days, after which they are destroyed in the spleen. Graveyard of RBC are called as spleen. Leukocytes are also known as a white blood cell WBC as they are colored due to the lack of the hemoglobin. They are the nucleated and the relatively lesser number which an average 6000 to 8000 cube of blood. Leukocytes are generally short and live. We have two main categories of WBC: granulocytes and agranulocytes. Neutrophils, eosinophils and the basophils are the different type of granulocyte, while lymphocyte and the monocyte are the agranulocyte. Neutrophils are the most abundant, about 60 to 65% of the total WBC, and basophils are the least abundant in the 0.5 to 1%. among them. The neutrophils and the monocytes 6 to 8% are phagocytic cells which are destroyed foraging organism are the entering the body. Basophils secrete the histamine, serotonin and the heparin etc. are involved in inflammatory reaction. Eosinophils are the present in resist infections and are also associated with allergic reaction. Lymphocytes are 20 to 25% present in the WBC are two major types are the B lymphocyte and the T lymphocyte forms. Both B and T lymphocytes are the responsible for the immune response of the body. Platelets, also called as a thrombocyte cells, fragments produced from the megakaryocyte special cells in the bone marrow. Blood normally contain 1 5 uh, did lakh to 3 3 lakh 15,000 platelets mmq. Platelets can be are the released in variety of substance, most of which are involved in the coagulation or the clotting of the blood. A reduction in their number leads to the clotting disorder, which will be the excessive loss of blood from the body. Blood groups. As you know, the bloods in human are the different in the certain aspect through in appears to be similar. Various type of grouping on the bloods can be done. Two such grouping, the ABO and the RH, widely used all over the world. ABO grouping. ABO grouping is based on the presence or the absence of surface of antigens chemicals that can be induced the immune response on the RBC, namely A and B. Similarly, the plasma difference involved in the contain two natural antibodies protein produced in the response of the antigens. The distribution of antigens and the antibody in the four groups A, B, AB and the O are given in the table 18.1. You are probably know that during the blood transfusion any blood cannot be used. The blood of donor has be carefully matched with the bloods of recipient before any blood transfusion to avoid the several problems of the clumping distributions of the RBC. The donors are the completely is also shown in the table. From the above mentioned table is evidence that group O blood can be donated to the person which any other blood groups, and hence O group are the individuals are called universal donor are the persons with AB group can be accept blood from the presence with AB as well as the other group of the bloods. Therefore such persons are called as universal recipient. RH grouping. Another antigens, the RH antigen, similar to one present in the rhesus monkey. Hence, the RH is also observed in the surface of RBC of majority, nearly 80% of the human. Such individuals are called as RH positive, and those whom these antigens is absent are called Rh negative. An Rh negative person it is the exposed to the Rh positive bloods will form the specialized antibody against the Rh antigens. Therefore, the Rh group should also be matched before the transfusion. A special case Rh incompatibility mismatching has been observed between the Rh negative blood of the pregnant mother with Rh positive bloods of the fetus. Rh antigens of the fetus do not expose to the Rh negative bloods of the mother in the first pregnancy, as the bloods are the well separated by the placenta. However, during the delivery of the first child, there is a possibility of exposures of the material bloods to the small amounts of the Rh positive bloods from the fetus. In such cases, the mother starts preparing the antibodies against Rh in her bloods. In case of the her subsequent pregnancies, the Rh antibodies from the mother Rh negative can be linked into the bloods of the fetus Rh positive and destroyed the fetus RBCs. This could be fetus to the fetus or the child causes several anemia and jaundice to the baby. This condition it is called as erythroblastis fetalis. This can be avoided by administering the anti-Rh antibody to the mother immediately after the delivery of the first child. Coagulation of the blood. You know that when the cut in the finger or hurt yourselves, you would be does not the continue to bleed for a long time. Usually the blood stops the falling after something. Do you know why? Blood it is exhibit coagulation or the clotting in response to an injury or the trauma. This is the mechanism to prevent excessive loss of blood from the body. You would have the observe a dark reddish brown scum. It is from the site of the cut or the injury over the periods called as a fibrins in the which dead and the damage from element of the bloods are trapped. Fibrins are the formed by the convergence of inactive fibrinogens in the plasma by the enzyme or the thrombin. Thrombin is turned are formed from another inactive substance present in the plasma called as a prothrombin. An enzyme complex thrombokinase is required for the above reaction. This complex is formed by the series of linked enzyme reaction. Cascade process involved in number of factors present in the plasma in the inactive state. An injury or the trauma are the stimulate the platelets in the blood to release the certain factor which active the mechanism of the coagulation. Certain factor released by the tissue or at the site of injury also can initiate coagulation. Calcium ion plays an important role in the clotting lymph tissue fluids. As the blood passes through the capillaries in the tissue, some of the water, along with many small water soluble substances, move out into the spaces between the cells of tissue, leaving the larger proteins and the most of the form element in the blood vessel. These fluid release these fluids these fluids are the release blood these fluids released out is called as the interstitial fluid or the tissue fluid. It has the same mineral distribution as that plasma. Exchange of the nutrient gases etc between the bloods and the cells always occurring through the fluids. An elaborated network of the vessels called as the lymphatic system collects this fluid and drains it back in the major veins. The fluid present in the lymphatic vessel is called as a lymph. Lymph is a colorless fluid containing a specialized lymphocytes which are the responsible for the immune response of the body. Lymph is also an the important carrier for nutrient hormone etc. Fats are the absorbed through the lymph is the lactical present in the interstitial villi. Circulatory pathways. The circulatory pathways are the two major types, open or the closed. Open circulatory system is present in arthropoda and mollusca, in which bloods are the pumped by the heart passes through the large vessel into the open space or the body cavity called as a sinuses. Annelida and chordata have the closed circulatory system in which the bloods are the pumped by the heart. It is always circulated through a closed network of the blood vessel. This pattern is considered to be more advantageous as the fluid can be more precisely regulated. All the vertebrata possess the muscular chamber heart. The fishes have a two-chamber heart with a atrium and the ventricle. Amphibians and the reptiles, except the crocodile, have the three-chamber heart with the two atria and the single ventricle. where the crocodile, birds, and the mammal possess a four-chamber heart with the two atria and two ventricles. In the fishes, the heart it pumps out deoxygenated blood, which is oxygenated by the gills and supplied to the body parts from where the deoxygenated blood it is returned to the heart. Single circulation. In amphibians and the reptiles, the left atrium are the receive oxygenated bloods from the gills, lungs, skins, and the right atrium get deoxygenated bloods from the body parts. However, they gets are the mix up to the single ventricle, which is pump out the mix of the blood in complete double circulation. In the birds and the mammal, oxygenated and deoxygenated bloods received by the left and the right atria respectively passes or on to the ventricles of the separate circulatory pathway are present in this organism. Hence, these animals have a double circulation. Let us study the human circulatory system. Human circulatory system, also called as the blood vascular system, consists of the muscular chamber heart, a network of close branching blood vessels, and the bloods and the fluid which is circulate. Heart it is the mesodermally derived organ situated in the thoracic cavity, in between the two lungs, slightly tied in the left. It has the size of is a clinch fee first. It is the protected by a double wall membrane bag pericardium. Enclosing the pericardial fluids, our heart it is four chambers. Two relatively small upper chamber are the atria, two larger lower chamber are called ventricles. A thin muscular wall are called as the interstitial septum separated by right and the left atria, wherever the at the thick wall, the interventricular septum, interventricular septum separated the left and the right ventricles. The atriums and the ventricles of the same sides are also separated by a thick fibrous tissue called as the atrioventricular septum. However, each these septa are provided with the opening through which the the two chambers of the same sides are the connected. The opening between the right atrium and the right ventricle it is girded by the valves from of three muscular flaps or the cups. The tricuspid valve, wherever the bicuspid or the mitral valve are the girded. The opening between the left atrium and the left ventricle, the opening of the right and the left ventricle into the pulmonary artery and the aorta respectively are provided with the semilunar valve. The valve on the heart allows the flow of blood only in one direction from the atria the ventricle and from the ventricles to the pulmonary artery or aorta. These valves are to prevent any backward flow. The entire heart is made up of cardiac muscles. The walls of the ventricle are much thicker than that of the atria. A specialized cardiac musculature are called as the nodal tissue is also distributed in the heart. Patches of the tissue are present in the right upper corner of the right atrium called as a sinoatrial node SAN. Another mass of this tissue seen in the lower left corner right atrium close to the atrioventricular septum. It is atrioventricular node called as the AV node also. A bundle of nodal fiber, atrioventricular bundle, AV bundle are the contained from the AVN or the AV node which is passes through the atrioventricular septal to emerges on the top of the interventricular septum and immediately divide into right and the left bundle. These branches give rise to minute fibers throughout the ventricular muscular of the respective sides and are called as a Purkinje fiber. These fibers are the along with right and the left bundles are known as a bundle of His. The nodal musculature has the ability to generate the action potential without any external stimulant. It is the auto-excitable. However, the number of the actions potential that could be generated by the minute vary different parts of the nodal system. The sinoatrial node can be generated the maximum number of the action potential 70 to 75 per minute, and the responsible for the initiating and the maintaining the rhythmic contractivity of the heart. Therefore, it is called as a pacemaker. Our heart is normally beats 70 to 75 times minute, average beats per minute. Cardiac cycle. How does the heart function? Let us take a look to begin with. All the four chambers of the heart are relaxed state. They are joint distal as the tricuspid and bicuspid valves are open. Blood from the pulmonary veins and vena cava flows into the left and the right ventricle respectively. Through the left and the right atria, the semilunar valve are the closed at that the stage. The sinoatrial node now generated an action potential which stimulate both the atria to the underground, the stimulate the contraction. The atrial systole, this it is increase in the flow of the blood in the ventricle by about 30%. The actions potential it is conducted to the ventricular sides of the AV nodes and the AV bundles, from where the bundle of his transmit it is the entire ventricular musculature. This causes the ventricular muscle contraction. Contract ventricular systole, it is the atria undergo relaxed dystole or the counseling with the ventricular systole. Ventricular systole, it is increase in the ventricular pressure causing the closure of tricuspid and bicuspid valve due to the attaining the black flow of the blood into the atria as the ventricular pressure increase in further the semilunar valve gardening the pulmonary artery. Right sides and the aorta, left sides are the force open, allowing the blood in the ventricles to flow through the vessels passes the circulatory pathway. The ventricle now the relaxed ventricular distal and the ventricular pressure falls causing the closure of semilunar valve, which is the prevent the black flow of the blood into the ventricle as the ventricular pressure distinct the further the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve are the push open in the present the veins. The bloods now owns can move the freely the ventricles. The earlier, since the SN nodes are the generated a new action potential event described the above repeated in the sequence in the process continue. The sequence events of the heart which is the or the cyclically are the repeated is called as a cardiac cycle, and it is the consist of the systole and diastole of the both atria and the ventricle. As mentioned earlier, is a heartbeat 72 times per minute. That is that may be cardiac cycle are performed per minute. From this could be the deduce that duration of the cardiac cycle 0.8 seconds. During a cardiac cycle, each ventricle pump out approximately 70 ml of the blood, which is called as a stroke volume. The stroke volume are the multiplied by the heart rate or beat per minute given the cardiac output. Therefore, our cardiac output can be defined as the volume of the blood it is pumped by the each ventricle per minute, an average 5000 ml or the 5 liter healthy individual. The body has the ability to alter the stroke volume as well as the heart rate and thereby the cardiac output. For example, the cardiac output of athlete will much higher than that of the ordinary man. During each of the cardiac cycle, two prominent sounds are the produced which can be easily heard through the streptococcus. The first heart sign or the lub is associated with the closure of tricuspid and the bicuspid valve. The second are the dub associated with closure of semilunar valve. These sounds are the clinically diagnosticated are the signature electrical cardiogram. You have probably the familiar with the scenes to the typical hospital television show. A patient soaks in the monitoring the machine, show in the voltage of the trap, the screen, and make the sound beep 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 as the patients are the go and the cardiac arrest. This type of the machine, electrocardiogram, it is used in the obtain the electrocardiogram ECG. ECG, it is the graphical represent of the electrical activity of the heart during the cardiac cycle to obtain the standard ECG as shown in the figure 18.3. Patient is connected to the machine with three electrical leads to the each of the wrist and to the left ankle. Continuity of the monitor of the heart activity. For detailed evaluation of the heart function are the multiple leads to the attached to the chest region. Hence, we will talk about the standard ECG. Each peak in the ECG are the identification which are letter P and the T are corresponding specific electrical activity of the heart. The P wave represent the electrical excitation or the depolarization of the atria, where the which leads to the contribution of the atria. The QRS complex represent the depolarization of the ventricle which initiate the ventricular contraction. The contraction are the start shortly after Q are the marks beginning the systole. The T wave represent the return the ventricles from the excitant to the normal state repolarization. The end of the T wave are the marks the ends of the systole. Obviously, by the counseling the number of QRS complexes that occur in given the time on or determine the heart beat ratio are the individual shapes and given configuration. Any deviation from the shapes are the indicate the possible abnormality or the disease. Hence, it is great clinical significance. Double circulation. As I mentioned in earlier, the blood it is from the right ventricle enters into pulmonary artery, where the left ventricle pumps into the aorta. The deoxygenated blood pump into the pulmonary artery. It is passed into lungs, where the oxygenated blood carry the pulmonary veins into the left atrium. Left pathway are considered pulmonary circulation. The oxygenated blood are the entire the aorta. It is carried by a network of the arteries and the arterioles and the capillary to the tissue from wherever the deoxygenated blood it is collected by a system of the venules and veins and vena cava. It is employed into right atrium. This is the systematic circulation. The systematic circulation provided by nutrient O2 and the other essential substance of the tissue takes CO2 and the other harmful substance away are the elimination. A unique are the vascular connections of the exist between the digestive tract, liver cord as a hepatic portal system. The hepatic portal veins are the carried bloods from the intestine of the liver before the vessel are the present our body, executively for the circulation of the bloods from the cardiac musculature. Regulation of the cardiac activity. Normal activity of the heart is regulated the interstitially auto-regulable by a specialized muscle nodal tissue. Hence, the heart it is called as the myogenic. It is the special neural center in the medulla oblongata can be moderate the cardiac function through the autonomic nervous system ANS. The neural signal through the sympathetic nervous part ANS can increase the rate of the heartbeat, the strength of the ventricular contraction, and thereby the cardiac output of the ANS decreases of the rate of the beat, speed of the conduction of the action potential, and thereby the cardiac output. The adrenal medulla hormones can also be increasing in cardiac output disorder or the circulatory system. High blood pressure are the known as the hypertension. Hypertension it is turns for the blood pressures that the higher normal 120 to 80 in the measure in 120 mmHg millimeters of mercury pressure. It is systolic or the pumping pressures and 80 mmHg are the diastolic or the resting pressure. If are the repeated checks of the blood pressure of and the individual is 140 to 90, 140 over the 90 or the higher, so the hypertension, high blood pressure leads to the heart disease and also the affect the vital organs like brain and the kidney. Coronary artery disease are the CAD. Coronary artery disease often repeated as the atherosclerosis affected the vessels that are the supply blood. Heart muscle causes deposit of the calcium, fat, cholesterol and the fibrous tissue which make the lumen of the arteries narrow. Angina, it is also called as angina pectoris, a symptom of the acute chest pain appears where no enough oxygen it is reaching the heart muscle. Angina can occur in the man and woman any range, but it is more common among the middle age and the elderly, occur to the conditions that affected the blood flow. Heart failure. Heart failure or means the state of the heart when it is not pumping the blood effectively enough the meet needs of the body. It is called as a congestive heart failure because of the congestions of the lungs. It is one of the main symptom of this disease. Heart failure is same cardiac arrest when the heart spot beating or the heart attack when the heart muscle it is suddenly damaged by the inadequate blood supply. Thank you.